Hello everyone. Working on code is very important part of every software engineer or software developer life. GitHub plays very important role. GitHub is a tool where you could manage your source code locally and remotely. As a new developer, you might need to know how to set up the GitHub repo, how to make sure that you have ability to work on this repo locally and remotely correctly and effectively. You also need to understand how to add access to others so they can work on your repo. You might want to know that how to make sure that you could manage your GitHub repo equally from desktop app as well as from command line. You want to know how to create the PR or a pull request. You may want to know that how to use the GitHub Stash, working on different branches. So there are several things as being a software engineer or a developer you must know to be very effective. And this tutorial is exactly what you need. In this tutorial, we are going to cover various aspects of GitHub as an early developer or the beginners, so you could learn what is needed for you to be an effective software developer. Being very effective with GitHub is going to help you to work with your team as well as work on your projects. So let's get started. Let's create a new repo. Here at my account, I'm already logged in at GitHub. I will be creating a new repo and I will call it Python Web Demo. Okay, so it's a repo named Python Web Demo, and I will say Python Web Server Back End. Okay, that's just a description. And I will make this repo public, means it's available for everyone to access it. I will add a README. I'm not adding gitignore intentionally because the objective is to add it later when we are using command line or the desktop GitHub tool. And if you want to add the license, feel free to add it, or you can add it later as well. Just using that, we are going to create the repo, and here is our repo. Very quick repo is available, and if we look into our project GitHub account, here you could see that Python Web Demo is available and is defined as public repo. Now we are going to clone it. So very first, I would be showing you that how you could clone it using command line. So here you could see that I have option to access it through HTTPS, through GitHub CLI or SSH. Here we are going to use the HTTPS. We have copied the URL. Now I will be using the command line. After we have created the repo, let's clone it. So git clone repo URL, and you could see that we have cloned it successfully. Let's get into there. So we have Python Web Demo ls, and here you could see that I do have a README which we have just created. If you look into all the files, here you could see that there is a .git folder, and all that information related with the Git is going to be stored here. At this point, you might be wondering that why the Git commands are working here, and the reason is that because the Git command line tools are already installed in this machine, and because of that all my Git commands are working. You can run the Git, and these are the various commands available along with Git. To know specific information about certain command, you can say git config, for example. It will tell you what are the parameters available along with this command. So anything you could really dig into depending on what your need is. Our next step is let's try to add something to this repo which we have just cloned it. So I will add two folders, mkdir core and mkdir API. I have added 2 folders here, and if you look into here, if I say get status, at this point you will see that okay, these 2 empty folders are added, but there is no content to show. It means that I really have to add some content here to make sure that we could push these 2 folders to our repo. I will be creating 2 readme files for that. So I will say vi core and readme.md inside the core. Okay, and I will be doing same for API readme markdown document. Okay, now if I say git status, and you will be seeing that these 2 folders, API and core, along with their content, are added to my local repo. The next step will be that whatever I have added, I would want to push that to the server, and that can be done using git commit. And if you just put git commit and press enter, so you will be seeing that hey, you want to commit something, but you haven't even selected what needs to be committed here. So before you really need to commit, you need to make sure that you are going to add something. Okay, and to make that happen, you need to use git add, and there are 2 options, minimum 2 options for git add. First one is git add dot. It means everything what I have added since the last checkpoint, add everything, means include everything which will be pushed. Or you can itemize it, means you can just give the exact name. So I will start with git add first here, git add dot. I have said git add dot, and then if I say git status, and you will see that these 2 files within the API and core folders are staged to be committed. It means that hey, you have selected a certain content which needs to be pushed at the repo. Now you can actually add a commit to it. So then I will say git commit, and if I try to press enter, you will be asked to write certain comment here. So one option is that you come here, and in this editor you will add a commit, means hey, the changes I have made, they are this. So one option you have, which I will not be using here, and I will escape it directly from here, and rather than that I will be using a command line. So I say git commit -m, means, or -m, means I'm adding a message to it, and I can say added core and API folder to the repo. Now you can see that we have committed that thing, and now at this point the content which we have decided to push, means we have staged it and added a commit message to it. It means that content can be pushed, and I would say git push, and let's see what happened. At this point you can say that this is the very first push I'm doing. It means I really have to add username and password and something related with that in order to have my permission that I could commit it here. I will use my email, because this is the email I have used to access the GitHub project. I can give my password, and if I try to put my password and I will enter, and you will see here that support for the password is not accessible any longer, and you will be using the personal access token instead. So what it is? So what we will do is that we are going to add a personal token here, and instead of the password we are going to use that personal access token. So let's come back to our GitHub project. So Python Web Demo is the project where we are working currently. However, in order to make any changes or giving other person to make any changes, we need to go look into at a root level access ProdRamp GitHub account, and in the settings we will be seeing the developer settings. So here you could see that for the developer settings for ProdRamp account, we have an option personal access tokens. We will select it. Here we will be generating a token, and we will call it, this is very clearly defined that this token is going to be valid for 7 days, and here various access parameters in order to make that token work. So means that token is used for repos. You can also use that token to create gist and notifications, get the user related information, and that's pretty much. If we want to make this user to be have ability to delete the repo, we can add that to it, but we will not do. We can put into read and write discussion. So these are the minimum required permissions you really want in order to make sure that this token will work. We will generate this token. Our token is available in memory. We will come back to our command line and we will perform the git push again. At this point, it's asked, okay, who is the user? I will use username, and instead of password, I'm going to paste the token which I have just pasted. It's not visible at command line, and press enter. And here you would see that our very first push is completed. At this point, you could be thinking that, okay, Avkash is the user who was given permission to push this code. What if other person should also have access to it? Means your team members, you really want other people to have access to push. To make that happen, we are going to go back to our repo again, our repo, which is a Python web demo. And within the Python web demo repo, we will be giving the individual access to the users. So here you can see the collaborators. And if you want to add collaborator, you can select here add people. You can give their name. So for example, if you want somebody else, so it will search who the collaborators are. You can select collaborator. You can also have ability to give the granular access to them. And when you add these users, an email will be sent to them so that they can click that link available in that email to go ahead and accept their invitation and have ability to access and make changes to this repo. I will just exit at this point. I'm back here, and you could see that there is a 2 commit. The second commit was added, which is added core and API folder to the repo. You could see here, we can go look into the code, and then you can see that API and all that thing is added here. Next step for us is to add the gitignore. And what it is, sometimes what happens is that we are creating content which are only related with the local file system. They really need not to be updated. And an example could be that you are adding a certain configuration, okay, and that configuration must not be pushed to the server because this would be available to everybody. So one example could be that I can say vi.env, okay, and in env file I'm just adding, could be port number, IP addresses, it could be any information, okay. And if you look into here, the .env is added, and if you see here git status, and .env is listed as a new content added which needs to be pushed now if you are not going to exclude it. So how you could exclude it? In order to exclude it, we are going to add a gitignore file. So we will say vi.gitignore, okay, and in the gitignore we will define what we really don't want to be updated. So I could say that in the gitignore I don't want .env to be added. I can explicitly say that anything which has a star.bin should not be updated. If I want to select a folder which should not be updated, so I could say the folder name private should not be updated. So you have ability to use wildcard, exact information or exact name to be excluded. So that's how you are going to create your gitignore. So we can one more time look into what is our gitignore look like, and here you could see that this is our gitignore is really added. Now if we say git status, and you will see that .env is not listed now, which needs to be added, because when we ran git status, it actually uses the gitignore to make sure that only content which should be pushed to the server or GitHub remote repo, that should be only added. So at this point, let's add the gitignore first. So what we will do, we will say git add dot gitignore. It means we are explicitly saying that, okay, at this point, I don't want to use the git add dot, means everything, just add one particular file. And we can look into git status. Okay, so next step will be git commit -m git is added. Okay, and at this point we can say git push. At this point you could see that our gitignore is added, and git status means everything is ready and updated. So gitignore could be designed for your project specific data. So if your repo is related with Python, then everything what you really want to set your gitignore for Python, you can use it. For Java, for React, there are several things you really could decide what needs to be added in your gitignore to be pushed at the server. Sometimes you are working on a one branch and other people want to work on other branches. So how you could do it? So first of all, what is the branch here? As you could see here, that we need to go back to our GitHub repo, and here you could see that we are working on the main branch. So as you could see here, that we have only one branch, which is main. So when you create a new repo at the GitHub, by default you are given the main branch where you are working right now, and that is also visible in this command line here, because you could see that I am using a different shell called Z shell, and with this shell it really tells me that which particular branch I am working into. So if you want to create a new branch, you can say git branch, and you can say Avkash new branch, and a new branch is created. At this point, whatever the base was where this branch was created, the branch is going to take that particular code base to start with. So this is our new branch. At this point, if you are trying to look into our server, you will see that still we have only one branch. That branch is not added because that branch is set to be local right now. So we have branch, this new branch, and in order to work on that branch, we have to check out that branch. So we will say git checkout Avkash new branch. Now you see that I am inside this branch. It means my current working area or my current GitHub branch for this Python web demo project is the Avkash new branch. And if I look into ls-l, you will see that the base of this branch is the exact same place where we left the main. I could create a new folder here, and I would call it dir, and I will call it sample, and sample, and I will add a little content to it. Okay, and if you look into the git status, you will see that there is a sample added for that. At this point, we will be following exact same method to push this code. We are going to do the git add git commit -m, and we can say sample folder is added to the repo, and we will say git push, and you will see what happens here. At this point, it's saying that, hey, you are working on a new branch. Okay, so if you are trying to push, you really have to make sure where you really want to push. So here you say that git push set upstream means I'm trying to push at my origin, and the branch is Avkash new branch, because that's what I really am trying to push into. So you can take this command here and go ahead and do the git push. At this time, git push branch is really being pushed. We can go back to the repo, reload it, And here you will be seeing is that, hey, there are two branches. You could see here main and Avkash new branch. So if you want to know what is really being done in this branch, the best option is to you select this branch, and very quickly you could see here that the sample is really being added here. However, that sample is not available if you look into the main branch, and it is not because the branch is added and a new code is added into that branch. What you really need is that you really need to merge that branch in your main branch. There are various ways to do that, but here at very quickly you would see that, hey, this new branch is really being posted, and what you could do is that very quickly you could create a PR or pull request. I could create, says this particular new PR, so I can say, hey, this is my PR. I can provide more information to this, and I can say, hey, please take a look, and I have created the PR. Okay, as soon as the PR is created, if you look into there, this PR is listed here. It means that main is there, Avkash new branch is also there, and then the good thing is that there is a PR. It means that if I want to merge those new changes coming out from a different branch, I could actually, being the owner of this repo, I could merge it. So here you could see this is the request. If I'm interested to know, hey, what was in this PR, I could look into the commit, and here you could see that, hey, this is the commit which is coming out from this branch. I can click on this and it really tells me that this was the change here. It means the readme is added. If there were multiple files, you could have seen majority of data related with everything what has been added within this new branch. And if there were some conflict, you would have been seen here that, hey, there are some conflict. It means some of the things are not matching depending on two or more files. So you have to go manually and fix those conflicts. But finally, everything is okay. You will be getting this green button, which means that, hey, you would like to, if you are okay, you can merge this PR. You select on it, you write your comment if you want to write anything. Okay, and then you can say, I would like to confirm it. Okay, so confirm here. Confirm, merge is really being done. So it means that Avkash new branch contents are merged into the main now. So this is what everything has been done. If some mistake happen, there is a revert option. It means that sometimes things are not working very well. You can come back here, and if you look into the code and you will be looking into the commits, you can say, hey, where the commits are, and you will see that, hey, the PR1 has already been merged. If you look into the PR and you look into here, you will see that, oh, this is how this PR is added. And if you want to revert it, you could revert it. If you have any other request within that, you can actually write here, or if you think that this branch should be deleted, that branch should be deleted, or you could delete that branch back to command line. So we can take a look at repo, and we can see that in the main branch, the sample contents are added at this point. Okay, we will come back to the command line. Our branch is already been added. At this point, we can look into the git status, and everything is okay. If we want to go away from this branch, we really need to check out other branches. So the best option is you can say git checkout main. Okay, now you could see here that we are on main. We can say git status, and if you will be looking into ls test, you will see here that, hey, the changes are updated at the server, but where those changes are, we haven't been seen here. So the server at the repo, you can see those changes here. We have already verified it's there, but why we do not have those changes at local? Reason is that because those changes are still available at the GitHub repo server or remote, but they are not being pulled here. So in order to pull those changes, so you have proper synchronization, you would be calling git pull. And git pull, you could see that the changes are locally available. And if you look into the ls-la and if you look into the git status, you will be seeing everything. So you have seen how we have worked on branches, how we have created the PR, how we have merged those PR, and how we have synchronized a new branch content to the main branch, and those changes are available to our local repo. So local repo, which I'm working locally, and the server repo or remote repo, which is available at the server. Okay, and then we have to push, we have to commit, we have to pull in order to make sure that synchronization is all the way at both places. Now we will see that how this can be done through the desktop GitHub application. For that reason, we can look into the GitHub desktop application. So this is a GitHub desktop application which you could download it. So if you would go to GitHub desktop, you could see that GitHub desktop available depending on which operating system you have, Windows or Mac. Here you could download for Windows, and because my operating system is Mac, so I have already downloaded and it's running locally in my machine. So here is my GitHub desktop application. We need to set things up. Very first thing, we will look into the GitHub desktop preference, and here you would see that I really have to connect my GitHub account. So I could have the GitHub Enterprise account, or I could have the personal account such as Avkash at ProdRamp right now I have. So here I will be signing in, and here you could see very quickly that rather than using your username and password or username and personal access token, you are being asked to use the continue with browser. So the best option for you is that before you try to go start, you make sure that your browser is open and you already have the ProdRamp access available in one of the tab. So once you have that thing accessible, it becomes very easy to connect. So we will come back here, we will click this. As you could see that we are being asked to open the GitHub desktop. It means the credentials related with this particular account, which is already open in this tab, are being propagated into this. And we will say, okay, go ahead, open the desktop, and very quickly you could see that these are the repos which are related with that particular account we have connected are listed here. That's all we have done so far to connect the account. The next step is to clone our repo so we could actually work together. So here you could see that we have very recently worked on this particular repo on command line. So in order to, if we try to clone it, what's going to happen is that it's really going to clone everything directly from there. However, because we already have the local repo, everything connected, so this option is not a good idea. What we need is that we need to use this add an existing repo from our local file system. So what we do is that we will come back to command line. We will say, hey, what is the path for our Python web demo local repo? So this is the path. I will be selecting this path, coming back to the GitHub, and I will say, hey, can you add this thing directly here? So there is a whole full path available, and I can say add repo. And very quickly you would see here that Python web demo repo is added here. It tells us that there are two branches, main and Avkash new branch. Here you could very quickly see that, hey, there are no changes in this repo yet locally. Various other commands are available. If you look into here, we have this repo is added, repo related. If you want to push pull, you have to see access directly. You can create a new branch. So let's try to make some changes at our local file system first. So at this point, we already are here in the main branch, and we will make another change. What we will do, we will add vi app.py. Okay, it's a Python related code. So let's do vi app.py line, saved it. And if you look into the git status, that file is added here. Now let's come back to here. you would see that, hey, a change in our Python web demo GitHub desktop application. It shows that something is really added here, and here is the change what it can see. We want to push this change directly from our GitHub app rather than command line. So there is file is added. We can say here that app.py is added to the repo. We have already added, and we want to commit this change here. So we have selected that, hey, app.py. If you uncheck it, it means there is nothing is being pushed here. So in order to make that change, you can check this. If you have added multiple files here, they all will be listed here. So you can select which one you want to push versus which one you do not want to push here. So I just want to say, hey, git app.py is added to the repo, and I would like to commit this thing. So I would say, hey, commit to the main, because that's where it is. And it is, if you could, that, hey, I have committed it. Next step to push. So if you remember, when we were using command line, we have selected git add, where we add file, git commit, where we write the commit message so that people can understand what has been updated, and finally we do the git push. So here is the git push. So we are pushing to the origin. So all three steps are done, and very quickly you could see here that, hey, this thing is done, everything, no particular updates are available from local to push at the server or remote. We can go back to command line. We can say git status, and everything has been done. So what we have done at command line is done at the server using git desktop app, everything here. To access our existing branch, so if we say git branch, and you could see that there are two branches, new branch and main branch. Okay, so I'm back to here. So I could say git branch, and I will call it Avkash data branch. Okay, git checkout Avkash data branch. Now I'm in Avkash data branch, and I will create a folder called mkdir data. Okay, and I will create data and data file.csv, and I will add here very simple data. I will very simple, two records are there. So it's a data file is really added at this point. And I'm still working here, so you could see that git status is here, and that is also available here. So you could see that, hey, Avkash data branch has some updates are available here. And at this point, while I was working, I am not sure that this data should be pushed or not. I'm still in middle of my thought process, and suddenly I really need to switch my branch. I really need to work. So if I try to work on branch, I could say git checkout main. Okay, let's see what happened. You see, so I am back to main here, and git status. If you see here that while I'm in main, you could see that data is really listed here. So what is going on at this point? So you see here that the switching to the main branch, the data content is really being added to the main branch, because we haven't decided that what we really wanted to do there. And that's where it's something very important to understand when you switch between branch without even adding, pushing, or committing, something like that. So now all your changes which were part of your previous branch are being pushed into here. And if you try to say git add, okay, git status, okay, and you see that content is available. And if you try to say git commit, data folder is added, and I can say git push, and you will be seeing here that this is being pushed from main to main. Okay, git status, you could see here that we have 7 commit, and very last commit was really being coming out from main branch. Okay, so data folder is added, and here you could see that, okay, this is how the commit happens, everything. So what we have learned so far, we learn is that, okay, sometimes we are working in branch and switching to the branch, all that changes are being pushed from that branch to the target branch where we are coming into. But we don't want to do that. We want to keep that as it is because we are not sure how to manage those changes. At this point, we will check out again that branch. So we will say git checkout Avkash data branch, and here you could see git status, all that data is there. Okay, and if you see here that git this branch does not have all this information, so we can say git pull. Okay, now we really need to pull all those details related with this branch. So it means we really need to pull all the data related with main to the data branch, because this is not really updated completely, because all the data which was available here has been pushed there. So that's, I really wanted to show you that this, all that information what you have added there is really being pushed into your main branch. So the best option for you is to, you no longer needed this branch, so you git checkout main. Now you have git branch, you could see that Avkash data branch is there, so you can just remove it. Okay, we are back here. To delete the branch, we will be using git, and we will be using the branch -t and the branch name. So here you could say Avkash data, and this is the way this branch will be deleted if it has been pushed from local to the server. And git branch delete, and here you could see that we have deleted this branch. And if we look into the git branch, you will see that Avkash data branch is no longer exist here. And at this point, we can also look at the server and say, hey, for this particular repo, how many branches we have? So we have only these 2 branches. So that's how you could delete the branch. And if you can also use this particular option to delete the branches as you really need it through command line. So let's understand how to use the git stash, which is very important aspect of Git. So we are back to our repo. We will be creating a new branch. So git branch, and I will call it Avkash test data. Okay, and git checkout Avkash test data. If you see, the base is everything right here. I will call here mkdir, and I will create something called temp, and inside the temp I will be just creating a file called temp dummy.txt. At this point, if you look into the git status, you will see that temp is really added here. Okay, now suddenly I decided that, hey, I really need to, I'm not sure I want to push this content, or I'm still not decided yet, but I still want to keep it. So one option I have is that I could say, hey, git add, means if you look into, everything is added here, what is added to this new branch. And I could say, hey, git stash it. Okay, so stash git stash. So everything is really being stashed. If you look into the git status, is say, hey, you didn't do anything. Whatever I have done in this branch has been stashed right now. And if I will come back and I can say, hey, git checkout main, I'm back to main. And if I look into the git status, git pull everything. So the dummy data which was really being added to a different branch, they are still there. They are not being pulled because they are being stashed away at this point. If I come back and I say, hey, I would like to work on that stashed data at this point, I have option. I can check out that branch again, git checkout Avkash, and here I have the test data branch status. If I say git stash, here you say, hey, you know, there is nothing, because when I'm doing git stash, it's expecting me to, hey, you might have something which you have added into git add or staged in your command, so you want me to stash it. But what we really need is that at this point we want to bring our stash back to us. So we can say git stash list, and you see here that we do have one of the stash available here, which is called the Avkash test data here. So there are two stash available, 0 and 1. So we could select which one we are really interested into. So this is the git stash we really have here. Okay, so there are multiple stashes are available. We can go back, and by the way, whenever those this list is coming, to exit is escape and then a colon, and then you can press Q, which is like a VI editor exit command without saving anything. So now we need to apply it. So we can say git stash. Okay, and then if I say apply, what's gonna happen is that if you see here, the last change which was related to Avkash test data is being applied back to here. So the document is back here. I can really look into, I can say git status at that point, and if I really do not want to make any changes to this stash, I have option to just, you know, again stash it out and exit from this branch, and everything will be as it is without any changes. At this point we can go look into our command line. You could see that we do have Avkash test data. It shows that in Avkash test data branch some of the content is really being added. At this point, if you say, hey, I want to switch back to main branch, so if you see here, I say I want to go back to main branch, and here you say, hey, you have two options: leave my changes on Avkash test data, it means that everything will be stashed, or bring my changes to main, so whatever was there, can you bring back to here? Okay, it will come back to the main branch. So when we were using command line, this option was automatically added. A stash option was not given unless we have to manually add that thing. So if I don't want anything, I can cancel it. So this is the way you could figure it out, how you could use a stash, whether the command line or you are using the GitHub desktop app to manage both way. At this point, we are already here. If we want to stash it, we can say it's already status, it's already staged right now. So we can say git stash. And if you look into the git status, nothing is there, nothing to commit and clean, everything. And if you look into the git stash list, you will see there are 3 of them, because you have stashed again. So there are multiple of them. So there is a whole stash related command available for you to clean up your stash. So that's how you can manage your stash, which is a really very important aspect of Git to really use it. And I will say git branch main here. Before I go there, I can also take a look very quick here, and here you could see that because we have stashed, so that the test data related command, nothing is really available, I can come back to main here. And once I say I'm back to main here at my desktop app, I can actually cancel this command here, and you would see that I'm already back to main here. So this command was not really needed, because switching the branch has already been happened at the GitHub desktop application level, and that applied to my command line. And if I look into ls-l, I will say git pull, git status, and everything shows that everything is as it was before we worked on that test data branch.
Now let's take a quick moment to recap what we have learned. We learned how to set up the GitHub repo, clone it, process it using command line as well as GitHub desktop app. We have seen that how we could add the GitHub access token, and that token will be used with command line to work with GitHub repo. We have learned command to add various content from local repo to remote repo, combine them together, add the commit message to it, and finally push it. We have also learned that how we could add gitignore file to our repo, create various pull requests. We learned how to manage different branches, how to shift data between branches, how to use the GitHub Stash, and finally we also learned that how GitHub Stash can be used to manage the content which is still on local file system. That's all, my friends. If you have enjoyed our content, please like it, share it, subscribe it. And finally, please remember, be good and do good. Thank you.